KOMU8's Decision 2024 election coverage starts now.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of KOMU8 News at 5. I'm Evie Allen.
And I'm Taylor Freeman. Thank you so much for joining us on this election day. We're going to start at the top of the ballot. Millions of Americans are casting their votes today to decide whether former President Donald Trump or Vice President Kamala Harris will become the 47th President of the United States. CNN's Jen Sullivan has more. And while polls close tonight, depending on the results in the battleground states, it could still take several days to declare a winner.
And here in Missouri, voters have a long ballot, including 5 constitutional amendments. Amendment 3 could overturn the state's near-total abortion ban. KOMU8's Siobhan Harms is live in St. Louis, where Amendment 3 supporters will be gathering later tonight. Siobhan.
Amendment 3 supporters will start getting here in a couple of hours, and we'll hear from them then. But first, I want to talk to you about the hundreds of medical professionals here in the state that have thrown their support behind Amendment 3. In September, over 800 medical professionals in Missouri signed a letter advocating for Amendment 3, saying abortion restrictions put women's health at risk.
All right, thanks, Siobhan. Missouri voters are deciding the future of reproductive health care rights today. Abortion rights opponents are actively campaigning outside polling locations. KOMU8's Kavya Ramesh is in Jefferson City to tell us what we can expect when the polls close. Kavya.
Abortion rights opponents say Missouri residents do not understand the potential consequences of voting yes on Amendment 3. They claim the amendment could result in unregulated procedures and taxpayer-funded abortions in the state.
We're following breaking news tonight on Columbia's northeast side. Good evening, everyone. I'm Evie Allen.
And I'm John Murphy. Thank you for joining us. There's a heavy police presence along Clark Lane after a reported shooting. This is just outside city limits. KOMU8's Jocelyn Pisha is live at the scene with what we know right now.
We're here on Clark Lane, right off of the St. Charles Road exit, where we can confirm that someone was shot around 9 p.m. right at Jake's Bar and Grill. I talked to a Boone County Sheriff's deputy who confirmed one person was shot and was transported to the hospital.
All right, thank you, Jocelyn. There's some good news tonight for a family in the southwest Missouri town of Urbana.
That family's son, Travis Timmerman, made national headlines this morning after being released from a prison in Syria.
We're starting with 2 major breaking news items tonight. Columbia police say a major crash has shut down a portion of eastbound I-70 in Columbia near the Range Line Street exit. Good evening, everyone. I'm Evie Allen. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, what you'll see is some live drone later video from our team out on the scene. An officer in the area told us 7 vehicles were involved. 2 people were transported to the hospital with injuries. Columbia Fire says crews were dispatched to reports of a crash right before 7:30. At least 2 vehicles had flames showing. Columbia police say traffic is being rerouted at the Stadium Boulevard exit. Now, video here is from when we first got to the scene about an hour ago. You can see smoke was coming out of a semi-truck that had its back doors open. CBD says westbound lanes are open right now. Officials are urging people to avoid this area. We reached out to multiple law enforcement agencies and will bring you more information as soon as we get it. And right now we're also following breaking news out of Washington, D.C. NBC News reports an American Airlines regional jet crashed with a helicopter as it approached the runway. All takeoffs and landings have been halted. U.S. Senator Jerry Moran from Kansas City says the crash involves an inbound plane from Kansas. The Producer Price Index shows inflation could be heating up. The index, which measures average price changes for producers, rose 3% for the year ending in November. Now, that's a slight acceleration from October, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The index serves as a potential bellwether for retail-level inflation in the months ahead. In other economic news today, the Biden administration moved to crack down on overdraft fees. Today, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau unveiled its finalized rule that places a $5 cap on those penalties. That's a significant drop from the typical $35 fee many customers face when they pull out more money than is currently available. The Bureau says this could save U.S. households roughly $225 per year and up to $5 billion nationwide. Well, today, Time magazine named President-elect Donald Trump its Person of the Year for the second time.
And as the former president lays out his vision for his second term, President Biden is making the most of the last weeks of his administration with a spree of historic pardons. NBC's Alice Barr has more from Washington. Today, Trump also extended an open invitation to Chinese President Xi Jinping to attend his inauguration. However, the Associated Press reports it's unlikely President Xi will accept. The head of the Federal Aviation Administration announced he'll be stepping down in January. FAA Chief Mike Whitaker says he will step down on January 20th when President-elect Trump takes office. The move will pave the way for Trump to nominate his own pick to head the FAA. Whitaker has been with the administration for just over a year after being confirmed by the Senate last October.
Pennsylvania police arrested a suspect in relation to the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. New York mayor says a man is in custody in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Investigators identified the suspect as Luigi Nicholas Mangione. An employee at McDonald's spotted him and thought he looked suspicious, so they called the police. Officials say Mangione was found with evidence linking him to the crime. Thompson was gunned down Wednesday in front of a Manhattan hotel. NYPD detectives in the district attorney's office now want to question Mangione. Now, he was also at a Pennsylvania courthouse for a preliminary argument earlier today. He's facing charges of forgery and false identification. But police also found a 3D printed pistol, black silencer, and a box of masks in his backpack. Now, he'll face charges in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and then be transported to New York City for more charges. In a press conference, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro condemned the shooting and said that violence does not belong in politics.
Federal and state authorities are trying to determine the origins of mysterious drones that have been flying over parts of the Northeast. U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson says he wants more answers. Today, the White House added they believe some of the sightings may actually be manned aircrafts operating legally. Many lawmakers have argued for stricter regulations. However, one drone company owner says blanket restrictions would hurt legal flyers. FAA rules require drones to be equipped with a digital ID that can be tracked by authorities, a rule the mystery aircrafts appear to be violating. However, shooting down a drone is also a federal felony, meaning civilians frustrated with the airborne intruders can't take matters into their own hands.
In less than 6 weeks, the popular social media app TikTok is set to be banned in the United States. The app's parent company is still trying to fight a law passed by Congress earlier this spring that would ban the app if it's not sold by January 19th. Lawmakers argue TikTok poses a national security threat due to its Chinese ownership. According to the Pew Research Center, around 60% of teenagers ages 13 to 17 use TikTok every day.
All right, thank you, Eric. Flooding in Jefferson City has receded, opening up access to one polling location. Severe flooding blocked roads to the Brookdale Farms polling place. Police say floodwaters have receded enough for voters to safely reach the site.
Coming up, hear how Missouri legislators could put more money in your pockets of Missourians. And 'tis the season for porch piracy. Hear how you can keep your gifts safe.
Lawmakers are asking for answers after a wave of mystery drone reports. Coming up, find out why these sightings may be more than meets the eye.
And it's the 11th hour for TikTok, how the social media world could be changed by an imminent ban.
Coming up, how the Columbia Fire Department is working to address staffing shortages. And it's a cabin controversy, why one Boonville man is speaking out after the city knocks down a historic property.
Well, the Trump administration walked back an order cutting federal grants. Coming up, how one local nonprofit says the order would have affected them. Plus, a confirmation clash on Capitol Hill as RFK Jr. faces tough questions from Congress.
KOMU 8 News starts now.
Tomorrow we will know whether Missourians will be able to vote to allow access to abortion again. Now, the fate of the proposed amendment now rests in the hands of the Missouri Supreme Court. Good evening, everyone. I'm Nathan Lee. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Now, the deadline to finalize the November ballot is the end of the day tomorrow. And new today, Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft moved to decertify the abortion measure and took off the amendment from his website. And this comes after a Cole County judge ruled the amendment to allow abortions again should not have qualified for the ballot, saying the groups trying to put the issue in front of voters did not inform people of what existing laws the new would do. But abortion advocacy groups quickly filed an appeal the Supreme Court is supposed to hear tomorrow. A constitutional law attorney says the timeline to get things done is tight.
Although I'm sure that the court will make the best decision that it can under these time constraints, it may be difficult for them to deliberate as fully as anyone would like for them to see.
The Supreme Court will have to decide whether Ashcroft can take abortion off the ballot and then whether abortion can even be on it at all. A long car chase in Columbia today ended with a crash and a suspect in custody. The chase started on Scott Boulevard, eventually onto Interstate 70, and ended on Champions Drive near University Hospital. Ricky Ross DeFord faced outstanding felony warrants. Officers say he was seen exiting a building and walking towards a car when deputies say DeFord fled after they attempted to block him from leaving a parking lot. Police say DeFord led them northbound on Scott Boulevard to Stadium Boulevard, turning onto multiple side streets and eventually onto I-70. Police deployed spike strips to flatten his tires. That chase eventually went south on College Avenue to Stadium Boulevard, where a crash happened with no injuries. DeFord then traveled westbound on Stadium Boulevard and turned south onto Champions Drive, where he attempted a U-turn and hit a Boone County Sheriff's Patrol vehicle, ending the pursuit. Police took DeFord to the Boone County Jail, where he faces multiple charges. The tensions are building between the Columbia Police Officers Association and city government. The association is calling on Columbia residents who are sick of violent crime to run against Mayor Barbara Buffalo. Now, the CPOA posted this on Facebook Friday. It says, quote, "Do you support the police and want safer streets? The mayoral election is approaching and your leadership could be the key for turning things around," end quote. The CPOA says this post represents the boiling point for ongoing frustrations with staffing shortages and allocations of resources towards the Columbia Police Department. KOMU 8 spoke to the president of the CPOA on the phone and to Mayor Barbara Buffalo. He says morale around the police department is at an all-time low. Mayor Buffalo responded to these statements.
They're exhausted. They're absolutely exhausted. We have so many vacancies on patrol. The reality comes down to we are tired. We're absolutely exhausted. And that is a big piece of why we are losing people.
I'll just say, and I sympathize with that. I don't want them to be, right? I want us to have enough officers so you can do that. I know in some of those instances, I have officers that do elect to take additional shifts, in part because it does help them in the end.
The CPOA Facebook post also claims that, quote, crime is skyrocketing, and, quote, KOMU 8 talked to Mayor Buffalo a couple of weeks ago, and she insisted that violent crime is down. Now, we've looked at the data and are working on verifying both claims to get accurate information and analysis. For those Friday Night Fever games, you may have to leave the camera bags and backpacks at home. Columbia Public Schools is cracking down on its clear bag policy. KOMU 8's Kylie Hansen is in the studio. Kylie, has this always been a policy?
It hasn't always been a strict policy, but the district sent out a notice early last week reminding spectators of the expectation. Small clutches and no larger than 4.5 by 6.5 inches will be permitted in addition to the clear bags. All bags that are not clear will be searched without exceptions. Medical exceptions will be considered on a case-by-case basis, and CPS Athletic Director David Egan says that this policy is a decision for the future.
Yeah, I think it's just a continued sort of evolution of being public schools, and how we continue to try to put those layers of protection in place to ensure that we provide a safe environment.
CPS hopes to eventually use the weapons detection system at spectator events, starting at those that draw larger crowds. In the studio, Kylie Hansen, KOMU 8 News.
Coming up, how the Columbia Fire Department is working to address staffing shortages. And it's a cabin controversy, why one Boonville man is speaking out after the city knocks down a historic property. Columbia's new fire chief says the city is trying to fill vacancies. Currently, there are 21 operations vacancies in CFD, but that's set to improve Friday when 15 people graduate from the fire academy. Chief Brian Schaefer says vacancies have put a strain on the department. He says staffing shortages have been a national issue since the pandemic, and he attributes this to a rise in mental health challenges. One CFD engineer says firefighters are slowly beginning to use the mental health services available to them.
I'm really proud of the work that we've done to get that done, but we got to continue to build on those resources. We have seen an uptick in members using those resources, and it's good. It's good that people are starting to talk about, their mental health.
Chief Schaefer says he's excited to be in Columbia. He says he's working with public information officers to find ways to get community input on the fire department. Coming up, how Louisiana residents are preparing for incoming tropical storm Francine.
And we saw temperatures in the upper 40s this morning, 80 the high this afternoon. We're talking about a warming trend that continues coming up.
Neighbors of a historic property in Boonville are disappointed with the city's action to remove it. Chris Coleman was hoping to fix up an old rental house when he found the structure contained a 200-year-old two-bedroom log cabin. And we started deconstruction of the cabin, hoping to rebuild it for a local museum, and the city gave him until September 1st to do so. When the site was not cleaned up this morning, Coleman says the city crews came in and destroyed many of the logs without his knowledge.
I would like some answers from people in charge why they would want to do this to somebody that's worked this hard. It's a slap in my face. I believe there were some violations made as far as just coming in and tearing down historic properties that aren't yours.
The city administrator declined an interview but told us in an email statement the city gave Coleman an extension to take down the building because it was deemed dangerous. She says when it wasn't demolished after the latest September 1st deadline, crews came in to complete the job. Well, the countdown is on for tomorrow's debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Both candidates are making their final preparations while voters are eager to see what both of them have to say. The presidential debate hosted by ABC News begins with NBC coverage tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central on KOMU 8. The people in Louisiana are preparing for the effects of Tropical Storm Francine. Francine is expected to strengthen over the next few days and become a hurricane before reaching the coast. Now, this was the scene in southwestern Louisiana today, with residents prepping sandbags as the state enters into a hurricane watch. The Baton Rouge mayor called on residents to make a plan.
We are Baton Rouge strong, and by working together, we can ensure that our community is Red Stick ready and resilient in the face of this storm. Please stay safe, take necessary precautions, and look out for one another.
Francine is the 6th storm of the season. Well, Mizzou's defense has put up 2 shutouts to open the season. See what head coach Eli Drinkwitz has to say about his defense next with sports. Following for KOMU 8 News at 10. The City of Columbia is reallocating millions of dollars in funds. Hear why and how it could affect your future air travel.
Absolutely beautiful. I think we've been pretty lucky with the type of weather we've been getting lately. What do you think?
I mean, certainly a wonderful taste of fall. A little more taste of summer the next 2 days, though.
Absolutely. We'll see you at 10.